Radhe Shyam. Okay. So the one with the brown on it means the kitchen can't hear it, huh? You can hear us in El Centro. Hare Krishna. What color's on that one? Oh, green, okay. Got the green light to give class. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Sri Radha Madhava ki, Sri Radha Giridhari ki jai, jai Om Vaiṣṇavas Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaya Shudra, Sri Srimad His Divine Grace of Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Rūpa ki jai, jai Om Vaiṣṇavas Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaya Shudra, Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Śrīla Bhakti Saranta Saraswati Goswāmī Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai, Nantikoti Vaiṣṇava Vrinda ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samveda Bhakti ki jai, Go Bharevanandi, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, assembled devotees, all glories, Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Would you like to open that door some? It's warm in here. Is the AC working here? Yeah. No, the door's fine. Just, Oh. No, just the door. Just. Text 15. Okay. So just appreciating how nicely Dvijamani's playing the Madanga. Everyone should say, Sadhu, 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 Sadhu. Very nice. But really, it's great, isn't it? Just picking up. It's great. Okay. So today we're reading 6th canto, 17th chapter. Mother Parvati curses Chitraketu. Text 15. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Ata Papi Yasim Yonim Asurim Yahi Durmate Yateha Bhuyo Mahatam Na Karta Putra Kilbisham Atapapi Yasim Yonim Asurim Yahi Durmate Yateha Bhuyo Mahatam Nakarta Putra Kilbisham Atapapi Yasim Yonim Asurim Yahi Durmate Yateha Bhuyo Mahatam Nakarta Putra Kilbisham Atapapi Yasim Yonim Asurim Yahi Durmate Yateha Bhuyo Mahatam Nakarta Putra Kilbisham. Anyone like to chant?
Atapapi Yasim Yonim Atapapi Yasim Yonim Asurim Yahi Durmate Asurim Yahi Durmate Yateha Bhuyo Mahatam Yateha Bhuyo Mahatam Nakarta Putra Kilbisham Nakarta Putra Kilbisham Atapapi Yasim Yonim Atapapi Yasim Yonim Yahi Durmate Asurim Yahi Durmate Yateha Bhuyo Mahatam Yateha Bhuyo Mahatam Nakarta Putra Kilbisham Nakarta Putra Kilbisham Atapapi Yasim Yonim Atapapi Yasim Yonim Asurim Yahi Durmate Asurim Yahi Durmate Yateha Bhuyo Mahatam Nakarta Putra Kilbisham Nakarta Putra Kilbisham Atapapi Yasim Yonim Atapapi Yasim Yonim Asurim Yahi Durmate Asurim Yahi Durmate Yateha Bhuyo Mahatam Yateha Bhuyo Mahatam Nakarta Putra Kilbisham Nakarta Putra Kilbisham Atapapi Yasim Yonim Atapapi Yasim Yonim Asurim Yahi Durmate Asurim Yahi Durmate Yateha Bhuyo Mahatam Yateha Bhuyo Mahatam Nakarta Putra Kilbisham Nakarta Putra Kilbisham Atapapi Yasim Yonim
Atapapi Yasim Yonim
Asurim Yahi Durmate
asurim yahi durmate
Yateha bhuyo mahatam
iteha bhuyo mahatam
akarta putra kilvisham.
akarta putra kilvisham. Would you like to chant on behalf of all the ladies in New Govardhan? Atapabhayasam yonim asurim yahi durmate iteha bhuyo mahatam nakarta putra kilvisham. Synonyms. Ata, therefore, papiyasim, most sinful, yonim, to the species of life, asurim, demoniac, yahi, go, durmate, O impudent one, yata, so that, iha, in this world, bhuya, again, mahatam, to great personalities, na, not, karta, will commit, putra, my dear son, kilbisham, any offense. Translation and purport by Śrīla Prabhupada. O impudent one, my dear son, now take birth in a low, sinful family of demons, so that you will not commit such an offense again toward exalted, saintly persons in this world. Purport. One should be very careful not to commit offenses at the lotus feet of Vaiṣṇavas, of whom Lord Śiva is the best. While instructing Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu described an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaiṣṇava as hātī mātā, a mad elephant. When a mad elephant enters a nice garden, it spoils the entire garden. Similarly, if one becomes like a mad elephant and commits offenses at the lotus feet of a Vaiṣṇava, his entire spiritual career is halted. His entire spiritual career is halted. One should therefore be very careful not to commit offenses at the lotus feet of a Vaiṣṇava. Mother Parvati was justified in punishing Chittaketu, for Chittaketu impudently criticized the Supreme Father, Mahadev, who is the father of the living entities conditioned within this material world. The goddess Durga is called Mother, and Lord Śiva is called Father. A pure Vaishnava should be very careful to engage in his specific duty without criticizing others. This is the safest position. Otherwise, if one tends to criticize others, he may commit the great offense of criticizing a Vaishnava. Because Chittaketu was undoubtedly a Vaishnava, he might have been surprised that Parvati had cursed him. Therefore, the goddess Parvati addressed him as Putra, or son. Everyone is a son of Mother Durga, but she is not an ordinary mother. As soon as there is a small discrepancy in a demon's behavior, Mother Durga immediately punishes the demon so that he may come to his senses. This is explained by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita in the 7th chapter, 14th verse. Daivi hi esha gunamai mama maya duratyaya mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. To surrender to Krishna means to surrender to his devotees also. For no one can be a proper servant of Krishna unless he is a proper servant of a devotee. Chadiya Vaiṣṇava Seva Nishtara Payeche Keba. Without serving a servant of Krishna, one cannot be elevated to being a servant of Krishna himself. Therefore, Mother Parvati spoke to Chittaketu exactly like a mother who says to her naughty child, "My dear child, I am punishing you so that you won't do anything like this again." This tendency of a mother to punish her child is found even in Mother Yashoda, who became the mother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mother Yashoda punished Krishna by binding him and showing him a stick. This is the duty of a mother, to chastise her beloved son. Even in the case of the Supreme Lord, it is to be understood that Mother Durga was justified in punishing Chittaketu. This punishment was a boon to Chittaketu because after taking birth as the demon Vritrasura, he was promoted directly to Vaikuntha. Om Agyantimarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshut Unminidam Taismai Sri Gurave Namaha Śrī Caitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Tena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Shvabadandikam Vanchikapatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaiṣṇavebhyo Namo Namaha. So by your blessings and good wishes, I'll try to say a few words. Bhadramte. You know what that means? Bhadramte? Yeah, good fortune to you. But by doing it, you give up your stock of good fortune. Did you know that? Are you willing to do that? Okay, I just want to let you know. That bag may be half empty now, what you got next to you. So, and I have it in my bag. So, yes. Therefore, by some most sinful, and then he says, you're going down. Okay. O impudent one, my dear son, now take birth in a low, sinful family of demons, so that you will not commit such an offense against toward exalted saintly persons in this world. They call it a timeout, right? In discipline, parents and teachers. You know what a timeout is in the classroom? Yeah, they put them in a corner, timeout. And while you're, I imagine they did this because you see it sometimes in the old days. You have a dunce cap. And in your generation, previous generation, how humiliating, right? To put the kid in the corner, facing the corner, and have a little paper hat that, like a cone that's put on it. It says dunce on it. And all the other kids would make fun of him. Talk about Hare Krishna. But anyways, there is what's called time out, which is a good thing. Someone's acting up and so on. You just sit there and think about what you did and just time out. And then when you can rejoin the family, rejoin the classroom or whatever after some time. So Mother Parvati is saying like that, it's a time out, and actually we're going to remove you so far from devotees you won't have the opportunity to offend them again. Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his conversation with Ramananda Roy, he asked Ramananda Roy, what's the most painful thing in this world? Now, there's a lot of painful things in this world, but what's the most painful thing?
To be without the devotees.
Be without the devotees. So, this is a pretty heavy curse. In other words, we're going to take you, you're going to be cursed to be a demon so far away from devotees you can never ever offend them. But of course, being far away from devotees means you don't get their good association either. But if we cannot take advantage of the good association of the devotees, and then I guess we get removed. That's the lesson here. We will be removed. And that's what's being referred to here. Prabhupada begins the purport by talking about this conversation with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he's instructing Rūpa Gosvāmī in the science of devotional service. He compares devotional service to a creeper, Bhakti Lata Bij. And if you will indulge me, I can read some of the translations right from that conversation if you like. Because I think the second or third verse actually is the verse that Prabhupada is referring to about hātī mātā. So it says here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, when a person receives the seed of devotional service, well actually the verse before that is, Brahmanda Brahmite Konya Bhagavan Jeev. So according to their karma, all living entities are wandering throughout the entire universe. So just look around. Everyone's got their karma and they're being pushed to wander around the whole universe, not just here in Pacific Beach, but we're moving throughout the whole universe according to our karma. Some of them are being elevated to the upper planetary systems. I'm sure the number's kind of low these days, but some go up, and some are going down into the lower planetary systems. Now here's the line. Out of many millions of wandering living entities, one who is very fortunate gets an opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. By the mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service. In other words, one's spiritual life begins. When a person receives a seed of devotional service, he should take care of it by becoming a gardener and sowing the seed in his heart. If he waters the seed gradually by the process of Shravana and Kirtana, hearing and chanting, the seed will begin to sprout. As one waters the Bhakti Lata beads, the seed sprouts and the creeper gradually grows to the point where it penetrates the walls of this universe and goes beyond the Viraja river, lying between the spiritual world and the material world. It attains Brahmaloka, or the Brahman effulgence, and penetrating through that stratum, it reaches the spiritual sky and the spiritual planet Goloka Vrindavan. Being situated in one's heart and being watered by Shravana Kirtana, the Bhakti creeper grows more and more. In this way, it attains the shelter of the desire tree of the lotus feet of Krishna, who is eternally situated in the planet known as Goloka Vrindavan in the topmost region of the spiritual sky. The creeper greatly expands in the Goloka Vrindavan planet, and there it produces the fruit of love for Krishna. Although remaining in the material world, the gardener regularly sprinkles the creeper with the water of hearing and chanting. Okay, this is the verse that... so that's amazing, isn't it? That little seed in the heart that the devotee, the spiritual master, puts in there, just by the watering process, devotional service, it comes from our heart all the way back to Krishna's lotus feet. Isn't that amazing? I mean, Mani Bandhani, he can grow some pretty far out plants out there in that garden, but I don't know if he can grow something that goes all the way to the spiritual world. Right? He can. Okay. He can. Okay, well, good. So, what a gift. That seed is, just like... the example is given, the banyan tree. It's a fig tree. Figs, they have little tiny seeds, and there's hundreds of them. They have the fig tree right out there. You open up a fig, the tiniest seeds, but that tiny seed, if it's planted, becomes this huge banyan tree. What potency is in such a tiny seed that it becomes this huge banyan tree? Lord Śiva sits under a banyan tree, and it's like 800 miles wide and 600 miles high? That's a pretty big banyan tree. And Prabhupada says there's one in the Calcutta Botanical Garden that's hundreds of years old, and it's massive. And in fact, there are two really big ones here in San Diego. One is that one near the History Museum, Balboa Park. And the other one is actually on Route 94, Mahabharat told me. There's actually a marker there. You're coming, it's near Kenwood exit and so on. There's the other gigantic one in San Diego. Someone planted these big banyan trees, long time ago. But it's a tiny little seed, so how potent is that little seed? But what's being referred to is a little seed that goes into the heart, and by the simple process of hearing and chanting about Krishna, it grows all the way to the spiritual world and wraps around Krishna's lotus feet. But here is the warning, as Prabhupada is referring to in the purport. If the devotee commits an offense at the feet of a Vaiṣṇava while cultivating the creeper of devotional service in the material world, his offense is compared to a mad elephant that uproots the creeper and breaks it. In this way, the leaves of the creeper are dried up. And it says, the next helpful verse, it says, the gardener must defend the creeper by fencing it all around so that the powerful elephant of offenses may not enter. And then it also talks about that when you're cultivating the creeper devotional services, other things start growing, these weeds. If you have too many weeds, it chokes the plant. And the catch here is that some of these weeds look just like the creeper. One has to be very, very careful. Very, very careful. Water the weeds. So in this particular section, Prabhupada in his purports goes into great detail about this hātī mātā, and Prabhupada says here, I don't know how much time we have, but Prabhupada defines it because we're thinking, one thing is, take it from me, I can teach you very nicely how to offend devotees, if you like. I have a seminar online, How to Offend Devotees. It's been online for a long time. But we divide the seminar in 3 sections: offenses within the mind, offenses with your words, and offenses with your body. Like that. It's not too many people sign up for it. Thank you. I'm glad that happens. But that's where there's 3 ways you can offend someone, right? Within your mind. I don't know about this devotee, right? Or you may say something, and you may say, I didn't say it to his face or her face, but if you just speak it, sometimes that's even worse, because the person's not there to defend themselves or whatever. But in socializing with others, you say, do you know so-and-so? That's with the words. You're just speaking and you're saying something unpleasant about a devotee. And then there's with the body, like that. And that's the most grievous, if one actually physically offends a Vaiṣṇava. Let's be very, 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 very careful. So these are all the hātī mātā. And offenses in general, they block. Prabhupada said, uses the word halt, right? Our devotional career, our devotional service is halted. That means stopped. It stops. Doesn't mean it's destroyed. But it means it's on hold. It's just on hold. It's over. It's on hold until something's rectified. So, but aparad, you know what the word aparad means? What does that mean? Radha, yes. Yeah, that which blocks the worship, aparad. And there's different kinds of aparad. One has to be careful. These are discussed. There's nam aparad. Right, defenses against the holy name, we recite those every single morning. I hear you all cheerfully reciting them as we're on the altar setting up for the puja. So you got the 10 offenses against the holy name. And then you have Dhammaparad, right? When you're in the holy Dham, you got to be careful. It's not different from Krishna. And then you have Seva Aparad on the altar when you're serving the deities, and even in the temple room. It's not just the pujaris, but there are many different seva aparads in the temple room. One has to be careful about not talking about something else in front of the deities and to your back to the deities, or different things like that. There's so many different ones listed. And then you have Vaiṣṇava aparad, and within Vaiṣṇava aparad you have Guru aparad, your own spiritual master. So you have to be careful because these are all very personal. If you just if you have a problem with that pedestal there, you don't think it's a good pedestal, and you criticize it. I don't like your color. Nothing's going to happen because it's inert matter. But the reason aparad is a problem because it's very personal. The Dham is non-different from Krishna. The name is non-different from Krishna. The devotees, right? The deities. It's all very, very personal. It's a personal relationship. And just as Prabhupada said here, one cannot become a servant, and he quotes Narottam Das Thakur, one can't become a servant of Krishna unless one becomes a servant of the devotees. It's all very, very personal. So why is it blocking? Is because we've offended a person. And it's a personal relationship. Who is it just talking about? Oh, it's my son-in-law. Yesterday. Anyways, his sister visited. She lives here too. And her daughter and my grandson are cousins. So they went swimming together. And I said to my wife, I thought he wasn't talking to his sister. They had a blowout. Sometimes people have a blowout and they won't talk to each other because they get offended like that. She goes, yeah, but they're over it. They're over it. But for weeks or maybe longer, they weren't talking to each other because she was offended by something he said and he was offended by something she said. So they're not talking. They both got offended. Well, I don't know all the details. I try to stay out of it. But they're enough to have kids, in their 30s and 40s, like that. But it's personal. It's a personal thing. You get offended, you get upset. Someone says something, hurts your feelings and so on, and then you back off. It's not pleasant anymore to be with that person, and maybe things will cool down, and being, you'll say the magic words, "I'm sorry," like that. Another one is, "I'm sorry, you're right." I'm sorry, you were right. That's a tough one. 2's easy, but the 4 is kind of, I'm sorry, you're right. Like that. But, and then it starts up again. It's very personal. So all of these aparads, they're referring to the jiva thinking, saying, and just doing the wrong thing. And it's hurtful to the devotees, and it's hurtful to Krishna, especially when we hurt the devotees. Just like a mother is more hurt when you offend the child than when you offend her. Right? Just like if you're in the wilderness and you see a bear, what's the next thing you look for? No, you see a mother bear, what's the next thing you look for? Child. Yes. Because if there's a cub around, you better get out of there. Because the mother is very, very sensitive, and she thinks that you're going to do something to the cub. So that's the worst thing you can do, is come between a bear and its cub. It's the way it is. And that's in every single species. Worst thing you can do is come between the mother and the child, right? Say something bad about a child, the mother hears it. Sorry, you have just been, what do they call that? No, when this is a popular thing now, when you just kind of like remove someone from your life. Cancel. You've been canceled from that person, that woman's life, because you just says, what? Ghosted is another one. Ghosted, canceled, like that. So, the love of a mother for its child is a reflection of the love that Krishna has for every living entity, but his is unlimited. So you can imagine what Krishna feels when we say something or think something or do something to the devotees. And actually, we should be very kind to all living entities. It's called jiva doi. Every living entity deserves some kindness, our kindness. So, but especially the devotees are especially dear to Krishna. Prabhupada says, just like you have affection for so many children, but your own children, they're very special. That's just natural. You can't fault a parent for being like that. So that's what's being described here. So Mahadev is the Vaiṣṇavanam Yata Sambhu, greatest of Vaishnavas. He's the father of all the living entities in this conditioned world. Parvati is his wife, and Chittaketu went over the line. He shouldn't. He should have said what he said, and therefore here's the reaction. And it's out of the goodness of her heart, because Prabhupada says, he may say, well, I'm a Vaishnav, why am I in trouble? Vaishnavas don't, just because we're a Vaishnav doesn't mean we're excused from everything we do. Prabhupada once said about ISKCON devotees, he was talking to someone in India, some gentleman, I was a god brother or whoever, but he made the point, he said, one of the problems with my disciples is they think they're better than everyone else. He's talking about the other Vaishnavas and everything like that. So yeah, be careful. So, but Parvati, their kindness was helping Chittaketu Maharaj. And that was it was out of compassion and kindness. And that's why she said, Putra, son. Speaking as a son. In other words, the mood is shifting. It's a very subtle thing here. Instead of Vaishnava, she said, Putra, my dear son. You shouldn't have said that. And as a mother to a son, in that mood, we're removing you. You're going to take birth as a demon, and you won't commit this offense again. Of course, it was a blessing because that demon was Brittasura. So that's one has to watch out for those things. Just something was on my mind, and it just left. I was going to make another point. All right, Krishna, if anyone sees it, please bring it back. It's a good point. So it's 8:27. Why do we commit offenses? False ego. We have a inflated concept or perception of ourselves, our level of importance. Yeah, puffed up. This one devotee is giving a lecture, and he said, if our false egos, if they're actually manifest in such a way where you could see them, we could never walk through the door to the temple because they're so big. We wouldn't get in the door. Our false egos are so big. Yeah, fathead or whatever. So that's the problem. The idea, the reality of the situation that we're all insignificant spirit souls. That doesn't mean we're useless or whatever. It just means we're insignificant. Just like you always see that when you take off on an airplane, and after a while, about 10,000 feet, you look down. Everything looks pretty insignificant, right? You see all the cars on Route 8 and this and that, and little tiny houses, and you can barely even see people. They're important, but really, we're all very insignificant, There's billions and you can't even count the number of jivas. So we're all insignificant in that sense in comparison to each other. To Krishna, we're all 100% important. That's Krishna. Every living entity is 100% important, equal. He's equal to everyone, loves everyone, but we're insignificant. But we're thinking, no, I'm very significant. What I say, what I think, what I do is very, very significant. And it's not. It really isn't. So we should be very, very humble. And it says humility comes when we're always glorifying those who are greater than us, the spiritual master, the Vaiṣṇavas, and Krishna. And then we realize, boy, I am insignificant. I am very, very tiny. What am I? Like that. So there's a lot to be said on this verse. And it keeps going, the next purport, the next purport. Are there any comments or questions because of the time? Yes, Dravida Prabhu.
One little comment. You mentioned Seva Aparad. So as those who are familiar with the Nectar of Devotion will remember, there's a whole list of Seva Aparads. One of which is one should not hold one's knees in front of the deities. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. But one of them which is that one should not spread one's legs before the deity. And I always wondered about that one. I mean, that seems kind of gross. But actually what Prabhupada means there is one should not extend one's feet toward the deities or for any worshipful personality. That's Seva Aparad. And then the other thing I had, it's kind of a question that it's a little bit of a puzzlement. Here you have this verse of the day, O impotent one, my dear son, now take birth in a low, sinful family of demons so that you will not commit such an offense again toward exalted, saintly persons in this world. I don't want to call it an oxymoron, because I'm an oxymoron, but that seems contradictory. Who's more likely to commit an offense against an exalted, saintly person than a demon? She just cursed him to become a demon, and he was offended Indra. Now he's not on the level of Narada Muni or anything, but still, it seems like self-contradictory.
Yes, but no, in this sense that most materialistic, you can call them demoniac if you like, people never come around devotees. They just don't. Birds of a feather flock together. It's like I was driving to the temple this morning, and I was coming up Grand Avenue, Balboa. I was looking at all the cars parked. I was thinking every single one of those cars means one or two people. Look at all these people in Pacific Beach. They don't even know the temple's here. They don't, some of them, most of them probably have never even gotten a book or heard of Krishna or whatever. Just the material world is unlimited, and there's so many, but they don't come around. You have to, for someone to get the association of devotees, that's what it says. Konya Bhagavan Jeev. Out of millions and millions and billions, one of them, just gets the good fortune, Agyata Sukriti, and that's the preachers. But most of them never get the association. It's very sad. But they don't want it. They don't want it, but that's the preachers, even though they don't want it. Just like devotees going on book distribution. Did the people get up in the morning and go, I'm going to look for the Hare Krishnas today and get myself a book? Right? Vijay, do you have anyone say, I woke up this morning and I said, I'm going to go get a book today. Sometimes, but not often, right? Not often. It's like, I'm going to get up. Or there's a commercial on TV. Good morning, San Diego. Now listen, when you get out there to Balboa Park today, make sure you get yourself a book at the table. Like that. Vijay's there and Vijamani and Govardhan. It's going to be auspicious. Your demoniac life is coming to an end. This has been a public service announcement by the city of San Diego. It's not there. It's just not there. So for the most part, materialistic people just don't come in touch. It's the mercy of the Vaishnavas that we make that arrangement as much as we possibly can. Any other questions or comments? Microphone? There you go, because people online can hear.
So on one hand, there's the point about not offending the devotees. But the other side, I question about is being offended. So if someone says, someone, oh, you're waking up at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, you need to wake up earlier, and they take offense at that, is that really offending a devotee, or is it the devotee being offended? What constitutes an offense if the truth is spoken and someone's heading in a wrong direction, or is a better way they can do things?
Okay, you're talking about constructive criticism or instruction and so on.
Yeah.
Okay. There's two things. The main thing is who is speaking, and if they're the right person to say something like that, but also where your heart is. If you're really just like Mother Parvati, she's trying to help Chitraketu. She's trying to help as a mother's helping a son. So if it's spoken out of good wishes and good intent to help someone, that's different than if you're just trying to make someone look less than you, or like that. So it's where it's coming from. Where in the heart is it coming from? That's the most important thing. And even that, even though you may have good wishes for someone, it may not be our position to say it. So we talk to someone else. Ramapati, can you tell Dvijamani to play the Madanga a little like this or a little like that, right? He'll take it from you because you're a Madanga player extraordinaire. Like that. Like that. So better Ramapati tells him than I tell him. That's just an example. Okay, one last, then we'll break.
It seems that there's not much justification at all to criticize devotees. That's what it seems like, based on all the statements, because like we were reading the other day, some statements from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he was saying you shouldn't criticize them for their past sinful activity before they came to Krishna consciousness. You shouldn't criticize them for any residue or of impurities in their character, or even their whatever fall downs in Krishna consciousness. So it's like, what's the justification? What can you criticize them for? It almost seems that there's no justification. And then, but then you have these statements like, for example, it's mentioned that Shukadeva Goswami, when he is speaking the Srimad Bhagavatam, he starts to get into this mood of criticizing non-devotees. And then someone would say, well, why is he doing that? Why doesn't he just talk about Krishna and the devotees? And it's, okay, well, he's doing that for the purpose of teaching. He's teaching us what we shouldn't be doing. That's why he's bringing up this point, how they're living, how they're wasting their life. Now, in relation to that, is it justifiable to mention the faults or criticize devotees for the purpose of teaching? Because you could say Shukadeva Goswami, he's criticizing the non-devotees for the purpose of teaching. But is it justifiable to criticize the devotees for the purpose of teaching? Of course, you could say maybe it is, but it's a very fine line, because a lot of the times when we are teaching, we may bring up, oh yeah, this is my experience based, but a lot of the times that experience, there's a personality in our mind. Do we say their name? Do we not say their name? Even if we don't say their name, they're in our mind. So how is that? Maybe you could just comment on, I don't know, sorry if that's too. Main thing, the justification of criticizing a devotee for the purpose of teaching.
Well, one thing is...
Prabhupada would do it with the bogus yogis.
Well, Prabhupada also, the guru has a right to chastise the disciples, to teach them. But there's no, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Malice in Prabhupada's heart. So in the heart of a Vaishnava, there's no malice, a true Vaishnava. So even though they say something, there's actually no malice. One has to be very, very careful. It's like, wow, that was really heavy. But it was a true Vaishnava. There's no malice whatsoever. And it's also how you say something. Just like, let's say, something has to be said. Who's an example of a devotee who may, well, think of one. They didn't cook something properly, okay? Now you can go in the kitchen and you can really criticize that devotee and use all kinds of names and this and that and try to make him feel bad and so on. Or you can go there and say, hey, Prabhu, let me cook the offering with you next time. Let me show you a good recipe. And you're just trying, there's no malice. But if you go in there and say, I have never tasted anything so bad in my life. I've had some really bad stuff, but that's the worst prasadam I ever had. Everyone in the temple's probably going to get sick. The health department's going to close us down. I wouldn't even feed it to a dog, Prabhu. Now, should you say something like that? Or should you say, hey, let me give you a recipe and I'll even show you how to cook it tomorrow. Right? What's better? So again, it's where it's coming from. You know, to want to hurt another person's feelings, that's malice. You know, there's no need for it. Now, a person, you know, makes someone humble, but that has to be your position because it says you have to be two things to get to criticize or instruct a person. Either very, very close to them as a close, close friend or their authority. If you're not those two things, then who are you to speak like that? Those two things. Because if you're very close to someone, you'll take it. Prabhupada Das can come up to me and say anything he wants to say. Right? He knows it. Right? In Dravida or Vijay, because they're my superiors, also friends, but superiors, they can come up and say whatever they want. Because they're my superiors.
Well, what about the idea like when I'm speaking with somebody and I'm saying, this is wrong, this is what you shouldn't do, and this is what he's doing. You know, like, this is what this particular person's doing, and it's wrong, and you shouldn't do that, you know?
Well, see, why bring in that person? Why bring in that person?
Why use their name?
Yeah, why use it, whatever, just say, this is the proper thing to do. This is what the scriptures say, this is appropriate. You know, but say, you know, and so doesn't do it right at all. He's never done it right. Why even bring that up? That means in our mind we like to find fault with that devotee instead of just concentrating on making sure whatever is done properly is done properly. So it really depends on what's in the heart. But again, that's a good thing to memorize. There's no malice in the heart of a Vaishnava. There's no malice. He doesn't feel any malice towards any living entity. Not even an ant or a mosquito or yeah, just nothing. Even a big demon, some big rascal demon, no malice at all. Okay? Should we end here or what? You're just taking the microphone to put it away? You have a question?
Online?
Online?
If I may, just a quick one.
Maitreya.
Yeah.
Dandavats.
Dandavats at your Lotus feet. Thank you very much for a wonderful class. They're the most important points I think I've heard this year. Really, really nice points. About the Vaishnavas, they're at Krishna's lotus feet. And you know what it's like if you're walking and you get a little rock in your shoe? You can't, you have, everything has to stop and you have to remove that irritation. So the devotees are at Krishna's lotus feet. If we're not careful, we don't deal carefully with the devotees, Krishna will take us like that little rock and just flick us. Thank you.
I think I've been removed from Krishna's shoes a lot. Anything else? Yeah?
How can you be like harsh on yourself and like easy with others sometimes? You say.
How?
Or like just if you could.
His Prabhupada said we should be strict for this.
Yes. I don't. How?
Apply that. How you like
Well,
are easy with others when they're like performing activities that it's a lot easier not to speak up. So you're just like, oh, I'm gonna be lenient with them.
Well, the point is, one is always very anxious to make advancement in Krishna consciousness, just like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said that one is, what is that? Exactly quote. Basically what he's saying, well, one thing he said about honeycomb with faults. One realizes one's own self is honeycombed with faults, but the point is that one is so busy working on one's own problems and deficiencies in Krishna consciousness, one does not have the time to pry into the frailties of others. One is so busy working on one's own Krishna consciousness, they doesn't have the time. You know? In other words, otherwise we think, I'm doing just fine, let me go find some fault with someone else, because I'm doing fine. But no, I'm not doing fine. I got a lot of work to do, and I just don't have time to find fault with others because I've got a lot of work to do. So that's a sign of a humble soul, like that, and one who's like that. So, is that good? And we have to be very careful because Krishna, I mean, it's in the purports to what we were in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it may come up again, that there you see devotees leave. And pretty much devotees leave because of aparad. There can be weakness of heart and so on, but devotees are removed, and then they come back and they'll tell how much they suffered. You know, Krishna just took them away, and you have to be very careful. Because as Prabhupada said, our spiritual life is halted. And we don't know how, and we're helpless. Can you imagine if you woke up tomorrow, or if you took a nap after a big breakfast or something, if you woke up and you had no desire to become a devotee? Like some kind of sci-fi movie or something like that. Hare Krishna, sci-fi movie. You wake up and you really don't know where you are. We used to have bhaktas like that. Maharaj, Gunagar Maharaj would make a bhakta in the evening, convince someone to move in, and I was his assistant, and I wake the person up, and for a second they didn't know where they were. I'm supposed to show them how to put on kopans and a dhoti at 3:30 in the morning, and they kind of forgot they even joined the Hare Krishna movement. So it was pretty rough sometimes, like, what's going on here, you know? But can you imagine that? You wake up tomorrow, and you have no desire to chant, to be with the devotees, even to take nothing. It's all gone. Where did it go? It's gone. And you don't know how to get it back. It happens. And that's just because of aparad. So one has to be very careful. Purushottam?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for all the important points. So in this story of Chitraketu, he, in the previously, Dharma Prabhu yesterday was mentioning, so in that assembly, it seems like Lord Śiva was there, Brahma, all the rishis, Naradas and everybody, all the exalted rishis were sitting. And Parvati's bring that argument that, who are you to criticize? Like, it's like Maryada Vyatikrama. You are crossing your senior's position and you're trying to comment on something which you are not in position to comment in. So is that a right understanding? Like in this,
I think
this
very much
situation?
so. That's the point that's being
which
made.
Often we do it. Like, I mean, like in temple situation also, right? We as a devotee, I don't have any authority to comment on anyone. Maybe temple president, temple commander, or someone who has the authority within the temple. But in the mind, the thoughts do come. Oh, this is wrong or right. Like judging, very easy to judge. But while we going through these purification, these thoughts do come in the mind. This is practical. Like, the new person doesn't know anything and just start judging. Sometimes it's tendency, sometimes it's ignorance, like just doesn't know. So how to understand this, like, and how to manage, especially as a neophyte, a bhakta, all this.
Well, I think what Bhakta Sal brought up, that we're supposed to be so busy working our own impurities, purifying our own heart, we just don't have time for that. We just don't have time, so we should catch ourselves. Say, it's so easy to look at everyone else's problems, we don't like looking at ourselves. But we're so busy, so happy in the process of devotional service, and so busy with our own Krishna consciousness, in the sense of our own anarthas, that we don't really have time or desire to, solve everyone else's problems by criticizing. You don't solve anyone's problem by criticizing them anyways, It's just the conditioning. As the whole material world is filled with living entities who are all puffed up, they all think they're God, all criticizing each, that's the material consciousness. Aham bhogi ishwaraham. right? I'm the enjoyer. I'm perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the Ishvara. Every living entity in the material world's heart is filled with all those desires. Welcome to the club. You know, just like sometimes people find fault with devotees or ISKCON, as if outside these doors no one has any problems. You know, it's like my oldest daughter just stepped down from a very, very high position in a company, a biotech company, because of all the politics and backbiting. You know? And was it, you read the latest Back to Godhead, the article by Vishaka, about when she started as a photographer? Did you read that article yet? Yeah, amazing. You know, just like she's saying, she was learning under some of the highest paid photographers, and they'd have models and all that. And she was noticing that these photographers, so well paid, all in anxiety, envious of each other, and all the models, you know, the most beautiful people around getting their picture taken, they're all in anxiety about what they look like and how much they're getting paid. She said it was just like, do I really want to pursue a career like this, being with these kinds of people, having that in my heart? And she wasn't a devotee, but she's thinking, this is so intense. The level of anxiety and envy and fault-finding and dissatisfaction. So it's the material world. So we have that in our heart, and then we come in the door. It's like a patient in a hospital. It's not you walk through the front door of the hospital, I'm cured! Woohoo! No, you got to get inside, you got to get treated, and then gradually, it could be 10 minutes or 10 months in the hospital, then they let you out. But it's not you walk in the door, it's like, hallelujah, hallelujah, I'm cured. No, doors of hospitals don't work like that. So we got some problems, but we have to be smart enough to not act on it. And that's by good association. You look, and as what Prabhupada said here, associate the fence around the Bhakti-lata Bij is nice devotees, because in that association we are very enlivened to be just like them, and they have no malice towards others. On that note, we can end. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.